by the Speaker of the National Council of Provinces, Thandi Modise's spokesperson, in a short while to talk about the issue surrounding her farm. Now, but first, let's talk about another very important issue. An investigation into the mental health status of South Africans has revealed that 1/3 of all South Africans have mental illnesses, and 75% of them will not get any kind of help. Now, despite this number, the Department of Health annually spends only 4% of its budget to address the crisis. More than 17 million people in South Africa are dealing with depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, as well as schizophrenia. Joining us now in studio to discuss this is clinical psychologist Zamo Mbele. Good to have you, Zamo. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
What does this mean for us as a nation if we've got such a large percentage of our population suffering from these mental illnesses?
Firstly, I'd like to say, those figures are probably incredibly modest. The statistics are much more shocking than that. And what it means is that we're living in a society which doesn't, number one, adequately address mental illness, let alone mental health. And then number two, which is not supportive enough for those individuals who might need some help in terms of the state, in terms of the institution, the formal institutions that we have. And this problem is just going to get worse and worse unless we do something about it, unless we speak about it a lot more.
Yeah. So there are not enough health, within the health department. There's not enough assistance, as well as NGOs. I know that we've got the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, but that's just one group with such a massive portion of the population struggling. So do we need to see more of these institutions being developed?
Absolutely, yeah. Look, I suppose organizations like the South African Depression and Anxiety Group are a result, they're a response to the fact that we really have a paucity of institutional resources to deal with the needs that we have. But the problem is not just our lack of resources that we have kind of formally in institutions. The problem is also a lack of awareness, incapacity to speak about it, and all of those types of things. Because once that happens, then it fosters much more of a culture of knowledge that we actually need to be addressing this issue head on. We need to be doing much more than just 4% of our budget. And I think that might come from an appreciation of the effects, the extent to which the mental illness or the mental health, the difficulties that we're currently facing really impact and affect our country overall.
Yeah. Is there a particular group of people that are affected by mental illnesses, or is it everybody?
I was just about to say, the group is everyone.
Yeah?
The group is every single individual. Look, of course, we can kind of cascade it and say that you have the individual with the mental illness who themselves is affected. And as I said, I think those figures are incredibly modest. It's much more than that. Then you have the immediate community, so that's family, friends, neighbors, and all of that's also affected, work colleagues. But then you have the entire society, so general population, and that is much more surreptitious. So we're affected, for example, when you look at cases such as addiction cases. Yeah. Now that's a mental illness and that's a mental wellness issue, but it's not always considered to be that, and it affects us all as a society. From big macro things like the economic losses of individuals with addictions who are battling and unmanaged, to more personal domestic issues that individuals might face as a result.
The worst thing is that people, you live with it, whether it be depression, whether it be anxiety. You don't treat it. It is treatable, but it leads to a very miserable society, and it can cause a lot of problems in a country. This is something that I suppose people just think, well, I can't get treated and I just have to live like this because I have got no information and knowledge about this. How do we get to this? I can imagine, living in a city, you have a lot more information, but you go out into a rural area and somebody is suffering from depression or anxiety or panic attacks or any disorder like this. They know nothing about this, and what do they do?
I think it's very tricky because to go back to the first part of your question is how do we get to this, and is we do this. We speak about it. We let people know that you do not need to live with the depression or the anxiety or the bipolar, that it's actually manageable. It's treatable, and something can be done. And one need not resolve themselves to this heavy blanket of whatever mental illness that they have and kind of live with it. But the other thing is also what you're saying, which is to spread the information both in the rural areas as well as in the cities. I think mostly we've we know that in the rural areas or in your less developed places in your country, people don't know so much about it, and therefore they live with it to that extent. But similarly in the cities, when everybody's busy, when it's a big rush, when nobody takes enough time to really find out how you're doing or to try and get you some help, there's also a problem there.
Yeah.
The more we can speak about it, the more we can get awareness about it, and the more we can do something about most of these conditions.
All right, I see now that the SADC is supporting Mental Health Month by holding a Panic Awareness Day on the 10th of July. Tell us about this.
So, I mean, this is pretty much in line with what I was speaking about earlier, but let's create awareness. And so what the South African Depression and Anxiety Group will be doing is having a day dedicated to panic awareness. Now, mind you, it's a month at the moment that we're trying to highlight a lot of these issues, but on the 10th will be a day dedicated to panic, and there'll be different activities all over the country. So there'll be groups being held with talks, so you'll have specialists giving some talks on panic in particular, and generally on mental wellness and mental illness. In 5 different provinces, we'll be having several in Gauteng, in Pretoria, and Sandton. I myself will be in Soweto. And in addition to that, we'll be having Facebook Fridays. So every Friday, the group on Facebook, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, have a forum where individuals can just log on and give questions, and we have experts waiting on the other side to try and assist, to try and give some help, to try and give some answers. It's at 1 o'clock and at 7 o'clock this coming Friday. And we'll be having Dr. Colinda Linde, a clinical psychologist, as well as Tyron Edgar, as well, also a clinical psychologist, on our Facebook Friday, trying to get some help. And it's that simple. You can just go on Facebook and send your questions, and we'll try to give you some help.
So we go on to the SADC
the South African Depression and Anxiety Group page.
Okay, so that's the group page.
Over and above that, you can always give the group a call.
What is the number?
0800 567 567, 0800 21 22 23. You can send a message 31393. Or even please call me and we'll try to call you back.
Okay.
But these are the really small things that we need to be doing, not just as organizations or NGOs, but as a country, as formal institution, to try and raise awareness about these conditions, which many people suffer from unwittingly and unnecessarily as well.
Absolutely, and it is treatable, because it really makes your life a living hell.
Absolutely,
if you don't know that you can sort this out. Thank you for talking to us. This was clinical psychologist Zamo Mbele talking to us about the mental health state in South Africa, which is not a very good picture, unfortunately. All right, let's take a break. It's 13 minutes.